Previously on balls.co.za.
Professor Tim Noakes from Cape Town. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
They're talking about your theories again. I'm going to kill our camera so we can get all of your bandwidth, Tim. I'm certainly hoping that Jonathan Kaplan has the same Skype setup as Tim Noakes.
Now look how clear he is. It's
Very
like HD.
beautiful. Very, very nice. HD Skype. Yeah.
You don't look like HD Ackerman, but you're clear. Yeah. I mean, you.
So I've just got to ask you, if you don't mind me asking you one question. I was having a debate this morning about this very thing, but not in my case. Okay, we differ on this one. You've told us that you don't need to go anywhere near a gym if you follow your theories, but I'm one of those people that just feels he needs to get there. I think my metabolism is, if I don't exercise, I just find it somewhere. So now I've actually gone below my target, and I was saying to my trainer now, what do I do to maintain my weight at that point? Because the more I train, the more I'm just going to burn.
Yeah.
And well, he didn't basically say eat more, but he says add more calories to your diet. Is that right?
Yeah. Seems to me you're getting your diet right. You know, my point always is that your diet is what drives your calorie consumption. And so if you are losing weight, it means that your calorie consumption is less than your requirement, which is good up to a point. And I would simply continue, because your body will choose the right weight for itself. And it's not right to overeat, because why would you want to eat more than your body's telling you to eat? So I believe very strongly, and you must listen to your body.
Okay.
So if you are losing weight and you are exercising well, just carry on, and it will stabilize. Maybe you'll lose another kilogram or two, and then just accept that that's the weight your body wants to be.
See, that's what I love about Prof. Noakes, is that he says drink when you're thirsty, exercise when you want to, and eat when you're hungry. That's basically what it is.
But I will be contacting Prof. Noakes again when I hit 67 kilos.
Tom, I'm so pleased you said that, because on your diet, as you know, I lost 16 kilograms, and I'm staying.
You put it all back?
No, rubbish. I'm at 98, but I doesn't want to change from there, Tim. It sometimes goes 99, 98, 99, 98.
But then it's settling, right?
Settling, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to lose more, then you have to decide whether to cut the protein or the fat. And so some people find that by cutting fat and eating more protein, they'll continue to lose weight. Others, it's the exact opposite. So there's this strange relationship we don't fully understand.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly adapted your theories to, I haven't just kind of completely adopted it, but I've adapted it to obviously what I've done before, and it really has worked. I mean, this is 7 months, so it really has worked perfectly for me, and I'm in a very comfortable position right now.
Fantastic.
But am I going to get cancer?
Darren, if you eat lots of carbohydrates, you are at risk of cancer.
Wow.
And if you eat lots of protein, you're at slightly increased risk. But if you eat lots of fat, there is no risk whatsoever. And that is confirmed by the world's leading authority on cancer, a guy called Campbell, Professor Campbell, from the Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital in the United States. And he has given a lecture, on a DVD lecture on the internet, on YouTube, in which he specifically says that if you increase your fat consumption, you will change your cancer risk not one iota. If you increase your carbohydrate intake, you will substantially increase your cancer risk. And if you increase your protein, it'll be somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So that's what the world's authority said, and that's biologically based. We absolutely understand the mechanisms inside the cells that would explain why carbohydrates drive cancer and why fats don't, and why protein fits in the middle.
Yeah. And when you talk about carbohydrates, you're including things like things that are high in sugars there as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's anything that will raise your blood glucose substantially and keep it elevated chronically.
Yeah.
And that's any time you eat carbohydrates, you raise your glucose. So that's what the mechanism would be.
What is it? Where's this argument coming from? University of Southern Carolina. It said that for those that between the age of 50 and 65 who ate large amounts of protein were 74% more likely to die of any cause within the study period.
Yeah. Now, the problem is that that's what we call an associational study. So what the scientists do, they find a population that is convenient, and they look at them, and they then take a one-day record of what they're eating. And this will be at the start of the study. So depending on how long the study lasts, 10 or 15 or 20 years, that's when they do the analysis. And they then say that that is what those people will eat for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. When the study ends, they then go and see who died of what, and then they go and mine into the data. They go and mine to find what relationships they can find between what the people ate and what they died of cancer. Now, what's really interesting in that study, I did read it, was that the main contribution to the diet of these people is carbohydrate. 51% of their diet is carbohydrate. They then ignore that. They do not refer back to carbohydrate once more in the study. And then they drill down to look at protein as a cause of cancer. My question is, why didn't they look at carbohydrates? And that's typically what they do. They come with a preconception, and then they look for that preconception. Now, it may well be that protein does raise your risk of cancer. I think it does a small amount, as I've indicated. There's a very, very much bigger study which did show that processed meat increased the risk of cancer, but it's a small amount. It was like 10 or 15%, which in epidemiological studies is very, very small. They've claimed this huge increase. And so it's a small study, and one can't really put all that emphasis on a small study. But the main point is the following. A study like that can only say there may be some link between protein and cancer. Therefore, we must now set up a trial where we take tens of thousands of people, and for 30 years, we tell one of the group that they must eat lots of protein, and the other group must eat lots of fat. And then at the end of 30 years, we'll see which group had the highest cancer rates. Until you do that, you cannot conclude anything about the link between meat or protein and cancer risk. You can only do it from these intervention studies. And this is not an intervention study. It's an associational study. And we know associational studies prove absolutely nothing.
You say there is some form of increase, not obviously dramatic, but particularly with high protein diet, obviously high carbs, we understand that as well. Would that be counterbalanced or counteracted by an intake of like a lot of green vegetables? I know barley green, stuff like that, turmeric.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the key to these studies, that they don't look at the combinations. So I know what people are going to immediately say. They say the low carbohydrate diet then is going to kill us all. But they don't. The low carbohydrate diet is not what was being tested. And you're absolutely right. We don't know what the role of vegetables was in the trial because they've only identified one factor. And that's the problem. You see, epidemiological studies are really good if there's a single factor that causes the disease. Then you can usually identify it. And that's why smoking was identified, because smoking is directly linked to lung cancer. And you don't have to have anything else causing the lung cancer. Smoking by itself will do it. We don't know in these trials what combination of foods cause cancer. And that's the problem. So then they try and drill down to a single factor, but it's very improbable that it's a single factor that is causing the particular factors that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Well, they say, and they say in the article, the researchers added that plant-based proteins, they said cancer and death rates also seem not to be affected by carbohydrate or fat consumption, suggesting animal protein was the main factor.
Yeah, you see, but that flies in the face. We know the biology, that is wrong in terms of biology. Cancer is caused by carbohydrates in the diet. We know that. And the biology is absolutely clear. So if they find something different from that, what it tells us is that the meat eaters were eating carbohydrates that were dangerous in some way. And it was the combination, or should I say it was the meat eating was linked to the carbohydrates in a way that they didn't identify it. And that's the problem. You see, they don't control for all these other factors. They just look at this one factor, protein intake. And who knows, protein eaters may never exercise. They may smoke. They may take lots of alcohol. They may never eat vegetables. We just don't know. And that's the problem with this type of study.
Yeah. Did you ever spend time chatting to Rob Lowe?
No, of course, I respected him hugely when he was a player. And unfortunately not. No, I haven't spoken to him.
Because he obviously, through my experiences, he put me onto a book by Dr. David Selvin. I don't know if you read it. It's called Anti-Cancer.
Read it? No.
Yeah,
no.
And it's a fascinating book, and I suggest that if anyone's at risk or even suffering from early stages, get this, because that's exactly, he kind of talks about the smoking aspect and stress and all that stuff that triggers it, but also talks about these other, as you say, the ones that counterbalance and can actually, in many ways, and in Rob's case, it appears though it's reversed many because I mean Rob's clear now and he was given 3 months at one stage.
Exactly.
Things like turmeric and all that stuff. He deals with that in detail, and it's a fascinating book.
Yeah. No, that's the reality. And that's the reality of nutritional diseases. It's never one single factor. It's a whole combination of things that you have to look at. And people who eat well, they tend to do all the things right. And then when we try to explain, oh, it's only this factor they're doing. No, they were doing, and they were exercising, and they weren't smoking, and they weren't drinking much alcohol, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I know we got to let Prof go, Darren, but it's just, you watch something like this on Sky News, and it puts the fear of God into you, and yet when you chat to you and you explain it and you work through it, it seems totally misleading then.
It is absolutely misleading. And then you have to ask, who's driving it? That's the thing. Now, the Guardian newspaper, who broke the story, have recently been given money by Unilever. And Unilever happens to make margarines, which we know are very bad for your health. And you have to ask, why doesn't a company that makes margarine want to control or assist in the control of a major newspaper in Britain? And you have to say it's because they're getting concerned that there's too much information out there about the bad consequences of eating their bad fats. And they're trying to confuse the public. That is my view. And you see, the more we get this message out that what you eat determines your health, and that the highly processed foods that you are eating are causing damage, those companies that are producing highly processed foods are going to fight back. And they're going to fight back through the media. And it's going to be dirty. And we have to understand that. There is something driving this, because this is a terrible study. There's no way you can draw those conclusions. So how possibly was it published and then got all this global exposure? There is something else more to it than good science.
Tim, just very quickly, could it be the margarine companies involved here?
Well, they would like to confuse you and make sure that people like myself are exposed as being fraudulent or strange or whatever, because we're taking a message out that processed food is bad. And the only way they can stop that message is by taking out the scientists who are saying like that. You have to go back to John Yudkin in 1965, 66. He said sugar is bad for you. Everything he said is true. And it's now been exposed again. And he was taken out by industry. He lost all his funding and had to stop doing scientific research. And industry is tough, and they're protecting their business. And they're not really interested in the health of the nation. They're interested in protecting their business.
Bottom line,
Yeah.
Sure. Prof, from one of our listeners, Danny Moss, please ask Prof, I'm training for Oceans on his diet, but I find I run out of energy at about 30 kilometers.
Carbo load.
Lose weight, Danny, lose weight.
Isn't that the point again? People are going, geez, I better not have carbohydrates because Prof Noakes says don't take carbohydrates. But if you're going to run 52 point something Ks, take carbohydrates to give you energy, right?
Well, that's kind of what we're trying not to say.
Okay. So carbo loading's gone.
It has gone in the extent that we used to just focus on carbohydrates. Now what we say is eat more protein and fat during training. And for a person like that, he hasn't fully adapted to the high-fat diet. Absolutely increase the carbohydrate content intake the day before the race. A little bit. A couple of apples, a couple of berries, maybe some vegetables. That's all you need. And then maybe a little carbohydrate during the race. But there are many people who find that actually they don't even need to do that. So we don't go and tell people now they must eat 600 or 700 or 800 grams of carbohydrate the day before. No, eat 200 grams, which is a couple of apples and, as I've mentioned, a few berries. That's all you need.
Yeah, put that.
And then you can have a bit of carbohydrate during the race. My point to him would be that if he definitely feels he needs carbohydrates, take it, but not in the amounts we used to prescribe.
So put those 2 6-packs of Castles away, Danny.
Absolutely.
That's for after the race.
That's for afterwards. You can have 1 or 2. All right. Come on, Prof. You've got to tell me you've had a Burger King since we last spoke.
No, fortunately not.
You haven't had a Whopper.
Burger King, I would have just eaten the burger and thrown the pat.
Always great to chat to you, Prof. We know you've got some more
Thanks,
people that want to talk to you. Thanks for joining us
Thanks
again
a lot,
today on
Prof.
Balls.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Balls.co.za